And I'll take the sedence for this meeting of the Community and Enterprise Resources Committee on the 6th of February 2024. I can see that we have present Councillors Anderson, Barker, Brogan and Brown. Councillor Carmichael? No. Also present are Councillors Convery, Corbett, Cowan, Cowie, Devlin and Dewar. Councillor Fagan? No, not seeing you. Councillor Ferguson Miller? Yeah, I'm seeing you have joined remotely. Councillor Gowland? You have also joined remotely. Also present today are Councillors Horn, Johnson Dempsey, Kerr. Councillor Lennon? No, not seeing you. Also present are Councillors Lockhart, MacDonald, McAllen, McCreary, McLachlan, Nugent and Toner. Councillor Watson? Not seeing you either. We also have a number of officers present today, and with that I'll pass you back to the Chair to commence today's business. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Now, could I say by way of introduction, I intend to take an item of urgent business, which is just really, I thought colleagues might be interested in a report from Roads on the response to the winter storms problems. So I'm going to ask Colin Park shortly to do something about that. I'm going to take it, in fact, after the declaration of interest, if that's okay with colleagues. So item 1, declaration of interest. Any declarations of interest? No declaration of interest. And can I therefore move to the item of urgent business and ask Colin to give us a bit of a report, if he will, on the response by the Roads Department and the Council generally to the winter storms problems. Thanks very much, Colin.
Thank you, Chair. Just a short update for members. As members will know, there's been obviously many challenges over the last couple of weeks in relation to two very powerful storms affecting South Lanarkshire and Scotland as a whole. Both Moan Service Roads and Kevin's side and the ground side have been working round the clock to kind of keep roads open, keep them clear, keeping our communities kind of mobile and connected. We had to close over 45 roads over those both two storms due to fallen trees, and another 11 roads were closed due to flooding. Fine balance has to be struck between asking our operatives to go out and clear these roads during the difficult conditions, but I think we've found the balance okay in the last couple of storms. For those members who had seen alerts coming through social media on the Sunday night with day 73 closed, with day 70 closed the following day, with our access to New Lanark Primary School closed, but we got that open overnight for the Monday morning. Grounds colleagues come in overnight as well, and during the kind of following days to kind of do a continued clear up. Over 350 sites with trees down there, so a massive undertaking, very resource intensive, and we had to obviously prioritise that and clear up as the resources permitted. Business as usual for us, that's what we do, both Kevin's side and my own side, and I think the kind of the lessons learned from there is just for us to have an agile workforce to continue to be prepared as much as we can, because the one thing we can't be certain of is the weather, and for those who don't know, watch out for the snow tomorrow when it comes, because temperatures are about to drop, but those are the famous last words from a weather forecaster. So thank you very much. Chair, back to you.
Thanks very much, Colin. Could I say, I thought the response by the Roads Department and the Council generally was very good, and I think we had a really good response in pretty atrocious conditions, actually, certainly speaking for our area. Does anyone have any questions or points to raise on that? I don't want, if you like, too much by way of local stuff, because that's going to be taken up directly, but any general points about the response? Councillor McCreary.
Thanks, Chair. I'd just like to thank Colin and his team for the work they've done. The storms we've had this year seem to have been the worst in living memory, and for me that's quite a long time. So let's hope the snow doesn't come tomorrow. And thanks very much. Please thank the guys for the work they do for the community. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Kenny, and I think we'll all agree with that. Councillor Barker, Ralph.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Colin. Just a general question. When trees are blown onto the roads from outside the boundary fence, do the landowners normally deal with it, in general? Do the landowners deal with it themselves, or is it really a thing that council has to deal with? Thanks.
Thanks, Chair. Every kind of location will be dealt with in its own kind of merit. There's a mixture of, depending on what trees come down, where if it's come down on an A-class route that we need to go open, we'll just go in and deal with it. Possibly us coming in, pushing it to the side. Kevin's the guys coming in a kind of team effort to kind of clear it up and cut it up. If it's a tree that's maybe in poor condition and we're aware of it and we know that it's maybe needing action, again, depends if it's in a private area, we'll write to them, ask the owners to take action. If they don't, depending upon the severity of it, we may take action ourselves and then recharge them. So it's not clear. You throw in the kind of whole issue over ash dieback, you can understand the kind of risks that are present both to the road network and wider parts of the community as well. But again, there's no single answer to that question, I'm afraid, Councillor. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Ralph. Maybe just as a follow-up on that, on the ash dieback thing, which you touched on there, was the large number of trees that fell got anything to do with that, or was that just a more general point?
Thanks, Chair. Unfortunately, no, it was mostly birch. It would have been much better, yeah, if it was the majority of ash trees that had come down. It would have saved a lot of money in the future, absolutely. But unfortunately, it was mostly birch and beech this time.
All right, thank you very much. Sorry, there's Councillor McLachlan.
Thank you, Chair. Echo the comments and sincere thanks to the staff putting themselves at risk in dangerous situations. It's really appreciated. And Colin remarked on the amount of time that has been spent on that. Now, another sort of seasonal type problem that we encounter relative to the roads department is the condition of the road and the potholes. And and is there any way that the work that's been carried out, Colin, has impacted on the programme to repair the potholes? Because it does seem to be more of a problem this year than I can remember for a very long time, and I wonder if it's connected.
Okay, Colin?
Thanks, Chair. In terms of kind of planned programme of works, the majority of the kind of surfacing works were completed November, December. We do have some projects which will kind of span into March, and we'll conclude them. This is just a terrible time of year. It's quite literally a perfect storm. We're getting freeze-thaw events, water penetrating the carriageway, freezing overnight very, very quickly. I saw it this morning coming in along Palace Grounds Road. Roads are just popping. So clearly, when resources have to be redeployed to go and target major storm events, then it will impact upon it. But we do have response standards, different levels of defects are identified. If it's an emergency defect, a certain depth and width of pothole, we will respond to that within, I think it's 4 hours, if not sooner. If it's really bad, one of our officers will wait and stay at it with a vehicle, flashing lights on it as well. So it'd be wrong to say there's no impact, Councillor McLachlan, but we try to minimise that impact as much as we can. The road network's not looking great out there just now at all. But we are trying to get around as much of it as we can. Sometimes we can't do the first time repair we'd like to do, depending on when the incident happens. If it's over the weekend, quarries are not open. We do a temporary repair, and then we do try and come back to do a more permanent repair in better weather conditions as well. Thanks, Chair.
I think it makes the point, doesn't it, just of the pressure that there is on the council's funding, particularly with roads. We don't get as much for our money as we once did. And there's going to be continuing problems unless we can find the funding on it. Councillor Carol Nugent. Carol.
Thanks, Robert. I just want to say it's to echo the comments that have already been made, but I had an issue recently. I was informed that a tree had blown over late in the afternoon. I raised it with the local guys. It was looked at that afternoon, and the tree was removed by 9:30 the next morning. So I just want to say thanks. The constituent was really grateful, and as I say, I've passed on my thanks locally, but I'd just like it to be formally recorded too. Thanks.
Okay, well, I hope that was a useful report and session. A few questions on it as well, but can you perhaps convey to your colleagues who have been out in this horrible weather, and good luck to them, to be quite frank, I wouldn't like it to be me, for our thanks, the committee's thanks for all the work that they did in responding to the storms, and sadly will perhaps be doing in the near future in responding to the storms as well. Thank you very much indeed. Can we move on to the... Sorry. I think there were, but there was some trouble in hearing Councillor McLachlan, I think, hadn't we? Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Okay, we'll keep an eye on that. There's been a few problems with that in recent meetings, actually, for some reason. Not quite sure what the difficulty is. Sorry, Councillor McLachlan, did you want to come back in on that?
You were speaking there, Chair, and talking about the
Sorry,
difficulties
can you
here.
speak up a bit, David?
Yeah, okay, so bring this a little bit closer. It's just a bit ironic that I heard you mention that people couldn't hear me, but I couldn't hear anything that was just said from the previous speaker. I heard Carol okay, but I couldn't hear it sounds like it was somebody in the room, and I couldn't hear them. And incidentally, can you hear me better? I'm sitting a bit closer to my
We
laptop
can't
now.
hear you all that well. We can hear you just,
Wow.
I think.
Gee whiz. Right. I'll try my headset.
Perhaps we can have some sort of general look at this, regardless of anything else, and see what we can do. Thanks for that intervention, David. Okay, can we move on to the normal items of the agenda and move to item 2, which is the minutes of the previous meeting, pages 5 to 14. Can I move the minutes of that, move the minutes of the meeting of 7th November 2023 as a correct record?
I'll second it.
Any observations on that one? Okay, the minutes are approved. Moving on to item 3, monitoring items, the Community Enterprise Resources Revenue Budget Monitoring Statement 23-24, pages 15 to 24. And can I invite Louise Harvey to speak to that, please?
Thank you, Chair. So this is the third report for committee on the financial year 23-24, covering the revenue budget for the period 1st of April through to the 1st of December, which is period 9 of our financial year. And we're also reporting the probable outturn exercise to the 31st of March for the resource. So section 5 on page 16 outlines the main financial implications of the report. Paragraph 5.1 outlines that Community Enterprise is reporting a break-even position after approved transfers to reserves of £240,000. Reserves were approved as part of the overall council outturn that was reported to Executive Committee on the 24th of January. The resource position is outlined in Appendix A, and the transfers to reserves by service area are noted in the relevant Appendix C and F. Various explanations are outlined in Appendix B to F for each service area, and we're noting that underspends are due to employee costs across all services, costs within roads, transportation and fleet relating to transport costs, depots, charging for electric vehicles. And we also have an under-recovery in parking income, the cost of our bin replacement programme within the waste service, cleaning materials within our facilities services, and generally the cost of medical referrals and IT costs across all our services. However, these are supported and offset by a marginal over-recovery on income associated with planning and building standards applications. In relation to the current period, as at the 1st of December, the resource is also reporting a break-even position after the approved transfers to reserves. And again, this reflects underspends at the moment in relation to our employee costs, supporting the transport costs, and an under-recovery in our parking income. And we do have the detailed explanations for each of the services outlined in Appendices B through to F. We do have standard budget environments, and these are proposed as set out at the bottom of Appendix B to F again, and these reflects updates to Community and Enterprises budget since we last reported on the 9th of September through to the 1st of December, and they cover the following main areas: transfers of our budget for capital that has been funded from revenue, budget realignments to reflect how we deliver our services across some of our areas, transfers from reserves for expenditure commitments, including our Strategic Waste Fund and our strategic investments in Frontline First, creation of budget to reflect the receipt of external income and funding supporting other programmes, funding for corporate items, including the pay award, rates and utilities, and budget changes associated with procurement savings. We are, as part of this paper, outlining an exercise that has been completed to look at the payment arrangements for utilities for council-owned assets that SLC operate. And this considers the ability of the council to reclaim the VAT on the cost of gas and electricity. It is proposed that the council is responsible for and payment of SLC utilities for these properties going forward. And as a result of this, the management fee in South Lanarkshire Leisure is reduced by the same amount. Approximately for 22-23 financial year, this was around 5.5 million. This is a variable figure due to price changes and consumption, and will be reviewed annually to ensure no detriment to the Council's financial position in relation to consumption risk. The financial implications are expected to be around 300,000 VAT savings for leisure. And really, just to give you a bit more detail in terms of the mechanics of this will mean that we would reduce the management fee that the Council is paying to leisure at the moment for the utility bills, and the Council would reclaim the VAT, and SLC would be able to benefit from the savings associated with the previously budgeted VAT that they would be currently paying on these utilities for these premises. And again, just to make it a wee bit more easier to follow, in terms of an example, I've mentioned the current costs are 5.5 million. If we say it was 5 million, then with VAT at 5%, this would mean that SLLC would currently have a budget of 5.250 million. South Lanarkshire Council will reduce the management fee by 5 million, pay the total costs at 5.250 million and reclaim the VAT, and South Lanarkshire Leisure will retain the 250,000 budget, and that's where the saving would come in. Again, to ensure there's no risk to the Council, there'll be an annual review to this process where any movements in the consumption is assessed, and any increase or decrease in the previously baseline figures when we start this from 24-25 would be reflected in appropriate change to the management fee. So this would make it zero risk to the Council, and this would be normal operating practice for South Lanarkshire Leisure in terms of dealing with changes to their consumption budget. Consumption spend, sorry. And this arrangement is in place in other local authority areas. The change will be effective from 24-25 and would be reflected in the 24-25 budget for community enterprise, which is reported as part of this resource position. And currently it's in Appendix D to your papers in terms of the current period 9. So the committee is asked to approve this approach. If I can refer committee back to paragraph 2, the committee is asked to approve the following recommendations, therefore, that the forecast to the 31st of March 24 of a break-even position on the community and enterprise resources revenue budget after the approved transfers to reserves as detailed in Appendix A be noted, that a break-even position as at the 1st of December for the community enterprise revenue budget, as outlined again in Appendix A, is noted, that the approach for the proposed changes to the payment of utilities by the Council on behalf of leisure, as detailed in Section 6 of the report to deliver the VAT saving, is approved, and also that the proposed budget requirements, as detailed in Appendix B to F for all the services, are approved. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much, Louise. For the avoidance of doubt, I take it that the, well, two things. I take it that the new VAT arrangement that you've outlined there will operate take part of the budget arrangements for this forthcoming year.
Yes, from the 1st of April.
And secondly, is there any potential, I assume there isn't, for any kind of retrospective look at what we did this year, as it were?
Yeah, no, I don't think there is. I'll check into that, but I think the answer is no, it would be from going forward.
Yeah. Okay, any questions on that report? Don't think I see any. In that case, can I move the report?
I'll second it.
And the committee will agree the report. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 4, that's the capital budget monitoring statement 23-24, pages 25 to 28, and Lorraine O'Hagan in this instance. Lorraine.
Thanks, Chair. Good afternoon, members. Agenda item 4 then is the standard capital budget monitoring report, and it takes us to the 1st of December, which is accounting period 9. Section 3 gives you a bit of background and explains how the budget is made up, and it includes amendments totalling a net decrease of £1 million, or just over, which were approved by the Executive Committee in November and January of this year. These adjustments are detailed in Appendix A, or page 28 of your papers, for your information. And these allow us to arrive at a budget of £38.577 million for the current year. I'm just noting in section 3.3 that we prepared a separate exception for the Executive Committee back on the 24th of January, and at the time of writing this report that meeting hadn't taken place, and therefore the exception is not reflected in this paper for commercial reasons. The Resources Capital Programme will be updated as part of the next capital monitoring cycle to this committee, subject to approval by the Citydale Cabinet on the 13th of February. And that's part of the normal Citydale governance arrangements. In terms of the financial implications, Section 5 provides an update then on your budget of 38.577. In terms of an outturn, that starts in Section 5.2, and we've been looking at our anticipated spend for the year, similar to what Louise has done on the revenue budget side. And currently we're suggesting an outturn of 34.1 million, which is an underspend of just shy of £4.5 million. The vast majority of that variance is down to timing of spend on a number of projects, and it just means that the budget will be required into 24-25 rather than 23-24 financial year. Section 5.3 notes a list of those projects. They were highlighted in the Executive Committee report last week, or the week before, sorry. And as I'm noting there at the end of that section, funding for these projects will carry into the new year as required. Section 5.4 gives you the position at period 9, so anticipated spend was 17.208 million, and as at the 1st of December we'd spent 17.094, so we were 100,000 behind programme at that point, and that's primarily reflecting the timing of spend on a couple of the roads carriageway projects, with recharges still to be processed for works completed to date, so no issues to note there. I'd be looking to refer members then back to section 2 in terms of the recommendations that the capital programme of 38.577 million and spend to date of 17.094 million be noted, and also that the projected outturn of 34.1 is noted. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Lorraine. Any questions on that report? Can I move the report?
I'll second it.
Report's approved. Thank you. Can I move on then to item 5, which is the Workforce Monitoring Statement, September to November 2023, pages 29 to 36. And I think it's Eileen McPeak that's going to speak to this report. Eileen.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the Community and Enterprise standard report in terms of the employment information for the resource covering the period September to November 2023. So section 4.1 outlines the attendance statistics for committee, and the details are in Appendix 1. So the absence rate for the resource for November is 7.3%. That's compared to a council-wide figure of 6.2%. This is increased by 1% compared to the previous month, but compared to the same period last year, the figure has decreased by 0.4%. All of these figures convert into a projected annual average for the resource of 6.3%, compared to a council-wide figure of 5.4%. So the resource managers continue to follow the maximising attendance procedures and work with personnel colleagues to ensure that all the supports are in place to enable employees to return to work and that the appropriate actions are taken. And this is demonstrated by a reduction in absence rates compared to the same period last year. And just by way of context, the absence figure for the resource for January is not yet available. However, but we can see from the December figures that there is a slight reduction of 6.8% for December for the resource. Moving on then, section 4.2 to 4.5, and the details are in Appendix 2. And the main points are that during the period, there was 370 occupational health referrals, there was 21 disciplinary hearings, there was 1 grievance, and there was no dignity at work issues raised. There was 53 accidents and incidents recorded during the period, and then there was 49 leavers, and of them 12 completed exit interviews. In terms of posts that became vacant during the period, the details are in Appendix 2, and there was 107 posts that became vacant, with managers indicating that 101 of them would be filled. 4 were due to the end of a fixed term contract, and 2 will be filled on a fixed term basis. So I'm looking to refer committee back to section 2 and ask that the workforce monitoring information for community and enterprise resources for the period of September to November 2023 be noted. Thank you.
Still off. Any questions on that report? Councillor John Anderson. John.
Thanks, yeah. It's just on 5.1, the staffing watch. There's been no change in the numbers of employees in the post from the 10th of June 23 to 9th of September. 9th of September was always 5 months ago. Why is it so out of date? Because we do get the figures on a regular basis. And is this people actually that we employ, or is it jobs that we have where there's a lot of vacancies in it? Thanks.
Eileen?
The staffing watch figures are a standard return that we do to the Scottish Government, covering specific, it's once a quarter, and it's a snapshot that's given each time in the year. And because when it's returned to the Scottish Government, it's then subsequently reported then through the committee cycle, so that's why you will see a bit of a lag. So we're referring back to September figures then. In terms of the types of posts, it's permanent posts and movement in terms of permanent employment that's reported to the Staff and Watch figures. But if you're looking for more detail around that, I'm happy to chat through with you if you would like to understand that. I appreciate sometimes it can be quite complicated in terms of the reporting mechanisms here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. No further questions. Can I therefore move the report?
I second it.
The report's approved by the committee. Moving on to item 6, that's the Community Enterprises Resource Plan Quarter 2 Progress Report 23-24, pages 37 to 66. Alison Brown to speak to that one, please. Alison.
Thank you, Chair. The report is 2023-24 Quarter 2 Progress Report for Community and Enterprise Resources, covering the period April to September last year. The resource plan follows the agreed corporate structure and style and is a key component of the Council's performance management arrangements. Progress across all measures is set out in Appendix 2. Key achievements are set out in paragraph 5.3, including the climate emergency community grants being fully committed by June last year, Châtellot allotments completed in August and now fully operational, green flag status being retained for Straven, Castlebank and Cambuslang parks, and consultation also undertaken in July and August last year for the new local transport strategy. In addition, both the social enterprise strategy and the cemetery strategy was approved by committee during the period. I'd also like to highlight there are no areas identified for improvement. And with that, I just turn back to the recommendation to note the progress report, note the achievements, and also note that there's no areas identified for improvement. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Alison. Now, in terms of questions, Councillor David Watson.
Thanks, Chair. Page 42, under Housing and Land, we've got a statement here saying that the vacant, derelict and contaminated land is brought back into productive use. You'll probably guide me here if it's appropriate to ask about the Clyde Gateway sites, where I understand the Scottish Government's withdrawing funding for the decontamination of land, which is going to have an impact on the economic well-being of South Lanarkshire. And I could maybe just ask for an update on that.
That's on the agenda later on, really, David, in terms of the Lough report towards the end of the thing, maybe more conveniently dealt with at that point.
Okay, I'll take that.
That's
Chair.
all right.
Thank you.
Councillor John Anderson. John.
Thanks. Page 49. There's quite a bit here about how we help businesses and employment, etc. And one of the interesting things was that we looked to actually create or retain 500 jobs through the economic development intervention. I know with the Lanarkshire Economic Forum, Business Gateway and Elevator, and I know you're actually going to be looking at the Lanarkshire Economic Forum to see if it's the best way forward and whether it needs tweaked. I'm wondering if the whole lot needs tweaked, because we're looking for 500 jobs, either retained or created. There was a report recently, North Lanarkshire had increased the large company numbers and had created 860 jobs. Now, we seem to be lagging well behind North Lanarkshire. Is there a reason for that, or is it time we actually looked at the overall view of this?
I think you've got to take this in context. I mean, the thing you're referring to is the number of new South Lanarkshire business starts supported specifically by Business Gateway. But perhaps Alison can speak a bit more to the detail of that.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Anderson. You're correct. There's been some challenges around Business Gateway and the current provider, which is Elevator. That contract is coming to an end imminently, and the work of Business Gateway is being brought back in-house with both North Lanarkshire and South Lanarkshire. It'll be hosted by North Lanarkshire. And I think that given that this is quarter 2, I have seen quarter 3 figures, and there is a marked improvement by Elevator. However, I think you're right in highlighting the challenges that we have faced with Elevator last year. We've got an improvement plan and an activity plan developed for how North and South Lanarkshire will be developing this over the coming year and future years. And I think it's also pertinent to say that this, and your point, is also linked to the inward investment paper that's later on the agenda, where there's a real opportunity to grow this whole area and not only look at startups but attract businesses of scale. And that's hopefully the direction of travel.
Okay, I think it's an important point that John's raised there, but I mean, a lot of the efforts of Communities Enterprise over the last period have been really to sort of staff up and to organise in such a way as to take the best advantage of the economic opportunities that are available, because there's no question at all what we want is for South Lanarkshire to be the top performing council in the country in terms of attracting and retaining business. And that's really what it's about, and trying to make the thing as effective and as focused as we possibly can. Alison's own position in that regard is hugely important to this, and she's mentioned one of the late items on the agenda which will help take forward that agenda as well. So very much one to keep an eye on, but I think in actual fact we've got the mechanisms in place to make a considerable success of this going forward. Any other questions on that report? In which case, can I move the report?
I'll second it.
And the committee notes the report. Can I move on to item 7? Not unconnected in a way with the comments made there. Renewable Energy Fund, strengthening links to rural priorities, pages 67 to 76. Can I invite Kenny Lean to speak to this report? Kenny.
Thank you, Chair. Is that on?
It seems to me, man.
Yeah. There we go. Thanks. Okay, thank you, Chair. So this report sets out the changes to the Renewable Energy Fund and strengthening links to rural priorities. At 3, it sets out the background to the fund and the current annual scale of the fund, which in 22-23 was just over £2 million. At 3.3, it sets out the programmes currently funded under the RAF programme, including microgrants to community councils across South Lanarkshire, employability programmes and small and large grant programmes. 3.6 sets out the scale and how the fund has grown rapidly in recent years, and the forecast figure for the current year is an income of £2.5 million. At 4.1, it sets out some of the reasons to review the fund, including the fund RAF has been in existence for 20 years, the increasing value of the funds as discussed, the lack of corresponding increases in the number of community-led applications, and a perceived aim to link the fund to rural priorities and rural communities' needs and have a larger impact. At 4.2 indicates the scale of the grant income available from different communities, that it's not an even fund, it's linked to the scale of the wind farm and how close communities are to the wind farms. So 4.2 indicates the scale of income to these areas. At 4.5 and 4.6 sets out the work done to identify priorities for the fund to address that have been brought up by communities through the Rural Conference and other activities, and the key challenges are listed in a perceived order of importance at 4.6. 4.7 sets out the changes to the fund to create a framework to deliver on the priorities within 4.6, and 4.8, these are shown at Appendix 1 as how the fund currently looks and the changes, and then there is further detail around about that within the appendix. 4.7 does set out the move from capital to revenue funding for projects, sets out changes to the scale of grants available, sets out the introduction of a Rural Facilities Sustainability Fund to help communities, and sets out other scope for the Council to deliver strategic community priorities on their behalf. 4.9 notes that the changes have been discussed at the Rural Task Force and a number of times, and then also at the Community Planning Partnership for the Rural Area Group. 4.11 sets out that the report, if approved, will be taken to the next Executive Committee for approval and will take effect immediately after that. Returning to the top of the page, 2.1, the committee is asked to approve the key changes at the key challenges at 4.6 and the changes in the criteria at 4.7.
Thanks very much, Kenny. This is, I think, a very important report. I've long thought myself that a strategic view of the use of the Renewable Energy Fund was needed, and it's one of the few sources of council income, if you like, which is actually going up. So the opportunities there, I think, for the rural area will be enhanced considerably by the widening of the scope of the use of the funds. In terms of questions, starting with Councillor Ross Gowland. Ross.
That's great. Thanks, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Great. I'd just like to congratulate Alison Brown and Kayleen's team, who have an ambitious plan to leverage wind turbine funds in rural areas. That's the Rural Facility Sustainability Fund. So I believe the communities that have to live near wind farms should receive the funds, and I look forward to seeing the plans flourish and continue in the future. So that's great. Thanks so much for that.
Thank you. I don't think that was a question as much as a comment. Was
No,
it?
it wasn't a
Alison,
question.
do you want to say anything on that? Don't think there's anything. No. Okay. Councillor Ralph Barker. Ralph.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Kenny, for that. Yes, it's progress. We've been looking at for the past 10 years or so. Still think it's too slow and too small. It's a way we could ease pressures on other parts of the council. But just a general on point 4.10, with the wind farm operators. In general, are the operators, are they reluctant to go for more revenue funding? Where are the limits there? Is it with our administration or the wind farm operators, or can you not say?
Alison? Okay, sorry, Kenny, I beg your pardon.
Okay, thanks, Councillor. The first thing is the agreements are a legal agreement with the wind farm operators. The wind farm operators don't all take the same view. I think generally the wind farm operators are content with revenue funding. What they're generally concerned about is that this is community funding and to go to communities, and they would have concern over where that line is between statutory and non-statutory services. So that is the area that they have a concern over. It has to be proven to be community need and the communities closest to the wind farms that are benefiting.
Thank you. That's what I wanted to hear.
Yeah, I think to be fair to Kenny, I think he understates the work that he and his colleagues have put into the discussions with the wind farm companies and the rural communities more generally to try and bring this one home. It's much more complicated than I personally thought it was when we first looked at it, simply because of the sheer number of the different funds involved and the different criteria that relate to them. But I think the end result has been a good one. I think we've now got a strategic approach to the thing, and I think if it enables us, if you like, to go forward in the rural area in a way which is going to be hopefully conducive to the strategic needs of those areas. So thank you very much for that. Can I therefore move the report and ask the committee to agree to endorse the recommendation for referral to the Executive Committee to approve the report?
I'll second the report.
That's agreed. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 8, that's the Community Benefit Fund's Middle Muir Connect to Renewables Programme Extension, pages 77 to 80. Again, back to Kenny Lean to speak to that report.
Thank you, Chair. I think this is quite good to come after that, just in terms of strategic approach to using the fund. And this is a report that comes forward to refresh the community benefits from Middlemuir in terms of the employability programme Connect to Renewables programme. So under point 3, it sets out the backgrounds to the fund regarding the setting up of Connect to Renewables Employability Programme in 2017. 3.2, it sets out the scale of the funding. It sets out the area that the funding Middlemere covers is the map within the appendix, and it sets out what the commitment was to the employability programme. 3.3 sets out the activity and support covered by the fund and what the Connect to Renewables programme undertakes. 3.5 identifies that both Banks Renewables, who are the operator of Middlemere, and the employability services value the programme and want it to continue. Yeah, 3.4, going back slightly, just gives the numbers of people supported over the period of time. Under 4.1 and 4.2, the report proposes an increase in the annual funding to the Connect to Renewables programme to an annual sum of £174,453 for the next 5 years. And at 5.1, it recognises that the programme supports one FTE to help deliver the programme. And then returning to 2.1, the report seeks approval from committee to continue funding for a further 5 years at the increased annual value of 174,453. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much, Kenny. I think it makes the point, doesn't it, that this is the whole area of this funding is not just, if you like, halls and leisure facilities and all that. It's kind of employability and sustainability as well. Any questions on that report? Can we therefore agree the report? Thank you very much. Moving on to item 9, the Lanark Racecourse Master Plan and Wider Racecourse Update, pages 81 to 96, and that is Alison Brown to speak to that one. Thanks, Alison.
Thank you. The report sets out the work undertaken to prepare a master plan for Lanark Racecourse, its financial implications and steps for implementation. It also provides an update on the Lanark Community Workshop. It's worth highlighting that the racecourse forms part of Lanark's common good, and that's set out in paragraphs 3.2 and 3.4. Section 4 sets out the master plan's process, including the consultation that's been undertaken, and also identifies the strengths and weaknesses of the site. A summary of the action plan is attached to the report. However, the main recommendations are to improve the visitor welcome experience and orientation, to restore the tote building and the wider interpretation across the site, protection of the ancient woodland, extending the biodiversity offer, developing clear, accessible routes and trails, improve connections to the wider area, and promoting private sector investment opportunities. The master plan is intended to support future development and provide context for external funding. It's important to stress that the various projects identified would not be funded through existing council budgets or indeed the Common Good Fund. It's also worth highlighting that the Equestrian Centre tenant has given notice to quit the site. In the report, this is cited as at July 2024. However, I've since been advised by colleagues in Property Services that this date is actually July 2025, giving us time to test the market for a new occupier. Section 6 provides an update on the Clydesdale Rural Development Centre and its journey from 2016 to being on site. Not the ideal outcome, but we'll continue to work with Healthy Valleys to identify premises for them and explore the opportunities for business space provision within Lanark. And with that, I just turn back to the recommendations, Chair, and that's to ask committee to endorse the master plan document as the guiding principles, and to note that the report will be forwarded to Finance and Corporate Resources Committee and Clydesdale Area Committee for noting and thereafter be published. And also to note the progress work being undertaken to deliver the Lanark Community Workshop. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Alison. Any questions on that report? No questions on it. It's again quite a significant report, I think, and thanks to Alison and our colleagues for their work on that one. Can we note the report? And move on to item 10. Item 10 is the South Lanarkshire Inward Investment Strategy, touched on before, pages 97 to 102. Again, Alison Brown to speak to the report.
Thank you. This report provides an update to refresh the Council's approach to inward investment. Over the last year, the Council has, subject to strengthening its relationships with Scottish Development International and tap into the inward investment opportunities that they can provide. However, it's become clear that more could be done to strengthen the Council's approach to inward investment. This paper sets out the various initiatives being developed by Enterprise and Sustainable Development Services, namely the establishment of a cross-resource in-house team, the creation of a cross-resource property inquiry database to track, monitor and analyse inquiries, the development of a standalone inward investment website to promote the Council and key stakeholders' sites, the development of a proposition document or pitch book, and to foster closer relationships with SDI, Scottish Enterprise, property agents, developers and investors. Some of the challenges are set out in Section 5, including the lack of industrial supply across the area, low vacancy rates, and older premises having particularly poor energy performance ratings. A further report will be brought back to committee on the detail of this. The strategy also presents opportunities for the Council, particularly in relation to sites at Langlands and East Kilbride and Canderside and Larkhall. However, this will require investment before bringing these sites to the market and will be subject to future committee papers. So with that, I'll just take you back to the recommendation and ask that committee approve the approach to inward investment within South Lanarkshire.
Thanks very much, Alison. This again is a very important report, and I think perhaps echoes some of the comments John Anderson made earlier on, very much designed to help us focus on the economic opportunities of South Lanarkshire and the necessary moves designed to make the best of that. The proposition document and the website and all that are key elements, it seems to me, in taking that element forward and making us, if you like, much more prominent in the realms of people who are looking to do work in South Lanarkshire. Any questions on the report? Councillor Ralph Barker. Ralph.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Alison. I do appreciate the vast amount of work that officers do on all these projects. For us just to look at it in a few minutes at most. 5.2, lack of new industrial supply land coming onto the market. How much is this a problem of industrial land going to residential because that's where the profit is? Have we got any views on that? Thanks.
Would you like to reply on that more generally, Alison, as well about the general strategy, if you like, with regard to industrial units, industrial land, and so forth? Thanks, Al.
Ralph, can you repeat your mic on?
Oh yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. You're right. In recent years, there have been a number of sizable developments that have taken industrial land out of that market or out of that sector into residential, and we could list a number. However, coming through COVID, the industrial market is only the one buoyant market at the moment. Industrial land values have gone through the roof in recent years, and we do need to protect what sites we have remaining. And indeed, we're working with colleagues in the planning service to ensure that we identify those coming through the new local development plan. We need to protect those. And I think it's also pertinent to say that the sites that I mentioned in the report in East Kilbride and Larkhall are sizable in scale, and that's very unusual in the Central Belt, where there is the opportunity to attract significant inward investment. And that's where we have to develop those relationships with SDI and looking to attract overseas investment into the area, as well as growing our own basis. So the industrial market is crucially important to us, and we've been doing a really important piece of work with Ryden Consultants to understand that, but not understand it from a South Lanarkshire perspective, but honing it right down to different geographical areas, because the rural area does have industrial land, but it's more limited. Hamilton has got a different issue to East Kilbride, Cambuslang, Rutherglen likewise. So the intention is to bring to this committee a much more detailed report on all the different variances across South Lanarkshire, and that will hopefully help us prioritise where we can invest and where we can look to achieve either a capital or revenue stream, potentially by developing our own assets in terms of industrial space for ourselves as well. So really important piece of work that's just concluding with Ryden, and we'll come back to you with the details of that.
I think it's fair to say as well, in the visits I've made to companies around the area, you know, we have picked up some of these issues, just anecdotally, if you like, in terms of the size of the industrial units available and the conditions sometimes of it as well. And I think the potential of being able to do things about this and to focus on it, not just in terms of attracting investment into South Lanarkshire, but also for smaller companies who are going to need to move into larger premises. There's a range of different mechanisms, isn't there, at scope here? Councillor Watson.
Thanks, Chair. Extremely disappointing to see 5.3 there that a recent inward investor from America was a strong preference for an East Kilbride base required to locate out with South Lanarkshire due to lack of available space to meet their timescales. Can we is it commercially sensitive, or can you maybe elaborate on that? And just another point about if you could elaborate probably a bit more on working with the private sector, and I'll focus on East Kilbride because it's the area I know, but I'm sure it's the same throughout South Lanarkshire. East Kilbride's got a lot of private industrial estates, and they're aged. The facilities in them are aged, and the office blocks probably don't meet current requirements, and the manufacturing facilities or storage facilities are the same. So what can we do with that, or what can we do with dialogue with the owners of these private estates? Because you drive through them just now in a shambles, and it's not an attractive place to take MD if you're wanting to bring inward investment in. Maybe comment on that. Thanks.
Alison, David, Alison.
Thank you. Yes, taking your first point about the American situation, we were approached via SDI, and it was a company based in San Diego who had strong links with Strathclyde University, and were very keen to develop a factory in the Glasgow area. They did some market research themselves and had identified Langlands. They're not the council-owned section of Langlands, the private sector area of Langlands. However, they required that unit immediately, with immediate effect, and the owner of the building wanted to do some works to it, and it just didn't meet their timeframes. But unfortunately, we didn't have anything. We, the council, didn't have anything else to offer them, either in our own portfolio or indeed put them in touch with another developer that met their specific criteria. So that's where, getting close to SDI, getting close to the market, and also understanding what else is out there is really important to try and ensure that if we try and capture as many opportunities within South Lanarkshire, either within our own premises or indeed, within the private sector, but within our patch. So that was, one example of that relationship starting to develop. Moving on to sort of more broadly about sort of private sector, you're absolutely right. In East Kilbride, there's significant stock held in private sector ownership. We've been speaking with a number of those, and indeed a business breakfast earlier in the year, we had an owner around that table, and I've since met with him again. We need to do much more collaboration and trying to sort of signpost them as far as possible towards funding opportunities. So one relatively small move that we've made is that the business support grants have now been extended to allow for sustainability upgrades within business premises. So it's not just about creating employment, but it's about that retrofit. And we need to get that message there that there is a relatively small pot of money, but that's the first step. And then it's then thinking about more strategic steps around how we move some of the very dated industrial estates and make them fit for purpose. And that collaboration will need to continue over a number of years. So the conversation started I don't have all the answers yet, but is definitely an area of activity that we will be exploring. And again, that next committee paper around all of that will hopefully address some of those issues.
Thanks, David. A very insightful question, if I may say so. I mean, there's a message out of all this, really, which is that South Lanarkshire is not just, like, if you like, open for business in the old phrase, but is welcoming, increasingly so, to business of all kinds. And the more we can do to make ourselves fit for that challenge, the better. That's what this report's about. So can I move the report?
Second it.
Thank you very much, and the committee approves the report. Moving on to item 11, that's the UK Levelling Up Fund, which David sort of touched on earlier on, round 3, pages 103 to 106. Can I invite Alison to speak to that report as well?
Thank you. This report provides an update on the outcome of round 3 of the UK Levelling Up Fund and outlines the next steps. The background to LUF, together with the bids submitted in rounds 1 and 2, is set out in section 3. Section 4 outlines the round 3 process, which has resulted in 2 projects being identified for funding: Shawfield Remediation and Development and the Three Rivers Active Tourism Project. The table in paragraph 4.3 identifies the project value, the LUF grant and the match funding, which has an SLC total project value of £23.8 million. The awards are subject to project validation, subsidy control checks and UK government sign-off, which is currently ongoing. In the case of Shawfield, work is underway to deliver the 3 component projects with Clyde Gateway. For the Clydesdale Way element of the Three Rivers project, a scope of service is currently being developed for the procurement of an external consultant to assist with the delivery of the project. And with that, committee is asked to note the outcome of round 3 of LUF and the next steps.
Thanks very much, Alison. I have to say, I don't know how you keep all these different varying projects in your brain, never mind anything else, but the work that's been done on this is quite phenomenal. As you'll be aware, committee, in a general way, this is round 3 of the LUF bids. Rounds 1 and 2 didn't come our way, unfortunately. A lot of work was done to try and correct that in round 3. And this is one of the biggest, I think, awards we've had of this sort of external funding for some time. It's particularly important, if I can focus a little bit on Shawfield, for the Shawfield remediation and development work being done in association with Clyde Gateway. And just to take David's earlier point, it's hugely regrettable that that should be followed within weeks by the withdrawal by the Scottish Government of £5 million of capital support, which it had been assumed would be continuing. In fact, it was in the budget papers until somebody phoned up to say that, unfortunately, that was a clerical mistake and it wasn't there after all. I think it's hugely unfortunate. I don't actually know what the Scottish Government are playing at on this one, to be quite frank. You know, they must have been aware of the LUF money going in. They must have been aware of the partnership arrangements which have led to the success of the Clyde Gateway projects up to date. The leader of the council, I know, has written to the Scottish Government directly on budget matters generally, including this. I've written specifically to the Deputy First Minister and Finance Secretary on the Shawfield matter in particular, because I think it's actually hugely important that the pressure be kept up on this one. There may be I don't doubt that people have got budget constraints on them right across the board, but there may be other ways of dealing with this in some way. I hope that out of some of these contacts there will come some degree of progress, which will be helpful here. But none of that should, I think, gainsay the fact that the Levelling Up Fund award has been a significant achievement for the council and for Alison and her team, and the work put into that has been quite considerable as well. Sorry, I've ranted on a bit about that one, but it's one I feel strongly about. I do actually feel that the way in which this has all operated has been both encouraging on the one hand and disappointing on the other. Can I go then to questions to Councillor Ross Gowland? Ross.
Yes, thanks, Chair. Would I be able to ask what is the South Lanarkshire Council's involvement in the Three Rivers Active Tourism? I know it's on the Clydesdale Way, but if you just let us know exactly where it is and actually what involvement South Lanarkshire Council is.
Okay, Alison?
Actually is.
Thank you, Councillor Gowland. The Three Rivers Active Tourism Project is a partnership with 2 other local authorities. It is being fronted, if you like, by Dumfries and Galloway Council. However, we as lead officers sit on officers' steering group. The individual projects are very disparate though, and are being delivered by the individual local authorities. So we will have responsibility for delivering on the Clydesdale Way project, which is essentially connecting various footpaths into a long-distance footpath, and also looking to support off-site activity around some of the communities within the rural area. So if you're encouraging tourism into the area, that there's potentially improvements to the wider infrastructure. So the project is developed, it's been submitted to the council. I can send you separately some individual details on the individual routes and the paths. One of the challenges around our particular project is that we want to try and limit the amount of access agreements required by private landowners, because we need to ensure delivery timeously. So we've been looking at the routes again just to make sure that they are deliverable, and we've been working with colleagues in roads to look at trying to maximise some of the more rural routes. But again, Councillor Gowland, I'm happy to provide the details of this project to you separately.
Okay, thank you very much. David Watson.
Thanks, Chair. He touched on some of this. I'm assuming from what you said, the typing mistake's not been recorrected again back to the original. But
not as far as I'm aware, that would be nice.
I think, as you made the comment, that it's a ridiculous situation that we're in with this, that the left hand doesn't seem to know what the right hand's doing here. And probably my question is, and again, we talk about economic development, we talk about creating jobs. Is this putting this whole scheme into jeopardy, and with a lack of funding coming from the government? And it's similar to what's happening at the Hare Myers Park and Ride facility, with money getting withdrawn from a major capital programme via SPT, which then's got an impact on what we're trying to do as a council. So really just trying to see where's this going, and is there an opportunity to get it, have it retrieved? Thanks.
Thanks. Alison, will you respond to that?
Thank you. Yes, it's fair to say that the decision or the error as Scottish Government has caused Clyde Gateway significant financial challenges. Projects have been paused imminently. So unless Clyde Gateway is legally committed or contractually committed to a project, projects are now in a holding pattern. And that's across Clyde Gateway, that's not just within South Lanarkshire, that's also on the Glasgow side. However, I'm pleased to say that the one project that they are committed to is obviously the LUF funding and securing the match funding. So the match funding that Clyde Gateway were meeting themselves, and that wasn't coming through the council, has now proved challenging for them. But they are taking a revised operating plan to the Clyde Gateway Board on the 23rd of February. And subject to that operating plan being approved, the match funding has been identified within Clyde Gateway's own funds to ensure the delivery of the Shawfield project. So that is great news, but it does put Clyde Gateway as an entity under great pressure. And I know that conversations are continuing at officer level within Scottish Government and clearly at a political level.
That's it. Councillor Andrea Cowan. We've lost her, have we? Can you click again, Andrea? I think we may have done something funny there. That's fine.
Yep.
We can see
Lovely. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I just wanted to follow up on what Robert said a wee bit earlier. The Shawfield, part of the Shawfield part of the Clyde Gateway work falls at the very edge of my ward. So I have an interest, obviously I know everyone has, but I have a specific interest. We as a South Lanarkshire group have also written to Shona Robinson, voicing our concerns at the withdrawal of the capital funding for Clyde Gateway. I've also spoken with Alison Thulis MP, who is chair of Clyde Gateway and voiced our concerns, and also Claire Hawkey, MSP, has written in strong terms to Shona Robinson. And I can tell you that as we speak, Claire Hawkey is in a meeting with Joe Fitzpatrick, and they are, this is the discussion that they're having today. So fingers crossed. I've obviously no insight into how that meeting will go, but there are, there is lobbying from all parts of the SNP on this subject as well, and we're all very disappointed at the withdrawal of the funding. So just really to make that point. The other thing I wanted to say is to the other funding, obviously the Levelling Up funding is most welcome, and the venture with Dumfries and Galloway Council, etc. The tourism aspect, I think, is also very welcome. I think that tourism is something that in South Lanarkshire we don't sell particularly well, and I think there's opportunity there, and hopefully this will be a springboard for some tourist activity. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Andrea, and thank you for the SMB Group support on that matter, as well to the government in Edinburgh. Councillor Ralph Balker.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for that, Alison. Particularly with respect to 6.2 Clydesdale Way. It's a lot of money with a lot of ultimate benefit. And certainly I'm pleased, with some of the more recent, senior officers to take a positive view rather than the previous kind of easy-ozy, anything goes view that we used to have. And also National Planning Framework 4. So, I just wonder if, in planning to make these developments, easier, if you like, and maybe Fraser could mention, but to be aware of the possible damage done by the previous policies of what you might call random individual residential developments flung about that end up being a problem for projects like Clydesdale Way, if that's possible, Fraser.
Fraser?
Yeah, I think it'd be hard to quantify the sort of damage that's taking place in certain, but working well with colleagues, and it's a big and strategic scheme to try and identify opportunities and sort of negate maybe issues that have happened as a result of previous development. So, but I would like to think it's not going to be something that's a major impediment to what is going to be a very good facility for the area.
Okay, Councillor Kenny McCreary. Kenny.
Thanks, Chair. If I understand this correctly, the Levelling Up Fund replaces the money we would have got from the EU in terms of funding. If that's wrong, well, I apologise and I don't have a question then. But if it is broadly correct, could I ask how this money from the UK government compares with what we had in the past from the EU? Now, again, I don't want to, down to the last penny. Is it more, less, generally the same, or what? Thanks, Chair.
I think David can reply to that. If David Booth.
We'll pass it over to Kenny first.
Oh, to Kenny, right? Okay, sorry. Bit of a ping pong here. Kenny.
Sorry, I'll catch that one. It's not 100% clear in terms of the Levelling Up Fund, but it's believed that that's not the replacement for European funds. The UK Shared Prosperity Fund, which we have reported to this committee back in, I think, June, I can't remember, is the direct replacement of ESF, ERDF funds that the Council had. And in terms of quantums for that fund, in terms of what we get and receive in Scotland, it's comparable to what was ESF and ERDF before. In terms of what the Council gets, it is actually more than we used to be getting. But then there were different mechanisms and everything else, and there were different partners, and there are still in terms of the third sector. So, short answer, no, I don't think LUF is the ESF, ERDF replacement, but we do have those funds through the new Shared Prosperity Fund.
Yes, I think that's maybe a wider debate, but does that answer your question, Kenny, for the moment?
So does that mean that the Levelling Up Fund is additional money then that we wouldn't have had in the past, pre-Brexit? this is not a Brexit debate, obviously. That's maybe for another day, or that's passed. But is that generally the case?
It's maybe not linked so much, is it? I mean, there's been the city deal
more
and
money.
other things, hasn't there, from time to time? I think these things move forward. I don't think you can make direct comparisons. Kenny, can you?
Yeah, no, that's it. It grows from other funds that were in England. It replicates that. It's not really the European Brexit legacy fund.
Okay, any other questions? I think we've exhausted our potential on that one. Thank you very much. It's an important report. I'm sorry that it's been undermined, if you like, by the Scottish Government element of the thing, but I don't think that should derogate from the fact that the amount of money we're getting here for these two projects is substantial and will make a considerable difference to the Council's ability to fulfil its objectives. Can I move the report?
I'll second it.
Thank you very much. The committee reads the report. Can I move on to item 12, which is the Community Enterprise Resources notification of contracts awarded 1st April to 30th September 2023. And David Booth can do something for his money on this occasion.
Thank you very much, Chair, and it's a short report as well. So this is a standard report that we bring to this committee in terms of standing orders, which provides the committee with a list of all of the contracts over £50,000 that were awarded by the resource during the period of the 1st of April to the 30th of September 2023 on the basis of the lowest offer and or the most economically advantageous offer submitted. All of those awards are contained in Appendix 1 of the report, and I'm happy, the committee is asked to approve that, and I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Any questions on that one? In that case, can I move the report?
I'll second it.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Barker.
Thanks,
Just
Chair.
last minute.
Thanks, David. I mean, just and it's not about the commerciality. One of the items which looks good to me is Scottish Borders Council. That we've used them to provide surface dressing of roads over many years. They're in a good position to provide that. I just wondered if Colin could possibly say, will this mean that we're catching up on systematic road maintenance, or will we still just be trying to catch up? Thanks.
Colin?
Give that one a go, Chair. This is obviously this is an element of road building, so it's the bitumen that binds the road construction together. So we just don't have that capability here. Scottish Borders provide that. So this has been in place for many years, and quite simply they can provide the service and we can't. They're pretty close to us. It's something I have in my radar. Do we look to provide that service ourselves as we move into the next kind of phase of road maintenance? So your question, does this mean we're going to catch up? I wouldn't necessarily say we're behind. We had a kind of chat at the very beginning there about the kind of wider road condition, and inevitably will be reports coming through the next service plan update, which will give an indication of what our road conditions are across the kind of various categories. It won't take a rocket scientist to look out the door and see that they could be better. So this particular contract is not specifically Scottish Borders doing work for us. They're just providing an element of road materials to allow us to do it. If that answers the question, possibly doesn't, but I can certainly kind of pick up with you later. Thank you.
I think we know the point that Rolf is trying to make on that one. Thank you very much. Can I then move that report? And the committee approves that report. Item 13, I have no other items of urgent business. Can I thank the committee for their attendance today? Thank you.